Welcome everyone to the next episode of the Catributor podcast. Today it's just us and we have some dev blocks to discuss. Starting with some new ships that have been announced. The West Virginia 44 that I think they have said they were going to bring years ago, and now it's happening.
That one's been teased for a very long time, since almost the West Virginia 41 came out. Like, a lot of people were wanting the late war refit at that point, and Wargaming basically said, well, we'll possibly do that sometime, and then it's taken until now, so I think it has literally been years. Yes. Like, when did even West Virginia 41 come out?
I don't know, maybe 3 years ago?
It's got to be something like that. We'll have it in the wiki, presumably. It's somewhere. It'd be nice if they had an actual introduction date in the wiki, but it'll be...
Yeah, it might just be a footnote somewhere. Now,
2018, so yeah, it's been like end of 2018, so it's been like 4.5 years. It's taken them a long time. It's actually more than we thought.
Yeah, it was probably one of those things where people were angry and they were like, oh yeah, sure, we're gonna do that sometime. And, you know, that's time has arrived, I guess.
I'm sure at least part of it was that they couldn't do a simple copy-paste, as they have done with other premiums, because it was extensively refit between those two periods. So, yeah, it's basically building a not quite an entirely new model. The hull would have been sort of the same, although it does come with the big, thick bulges that you see on the California. Okay. So the hull form's has changed a bit. And all of the casemate guns are gone for now a much more modernized secondary turret, along with a whole absolute raft of as many AA guns as they could put on there, because that was the American doctrine towards the end of the war. For some reason.
Don't worry, it won't shoot down any planes, so...
Yeah, well, yeah, probably not.
But it's, interestingly enough, it's a secondary focused ship again, so it follows the model of the Massachusetts, Georgia, and Ohio in that regard. Although it's a West Virginia, so it's going to be slow. But
yeah, it's a mixed bag when it's a US ship, because the US ship with the 127 mils don't have the best penetration, even if they have a good rate of fire. So you might have to invest in IFHE if you want to get a better result out of them. But even then, I think you were saying before we started, it doesn't boost it quite enough to be useful against higher tier ships.
It goes up to, I think, 26, if I remember correctly. You used to get the 27 before the IFHE rework, but they taken that one pen off that was somewhat significant. Although, I mean, this is tier 7, right? And being able to pen tier 5 is probably enough around this tier. It's getting more and more problematic when you're facing more like tier 10s or tier 11s these days in the higher tiers. So I feel like this could work. Obviously, tier 9 doesn't quite have the best range. I think it has the same range as the Germans. So 6.3 base, and that goes up to 9 something. Not the exact number. So
yeah, it'll be something like that. I can double check on my Scharnhorst, I guess. It'll be 9 point something. 9.3, I think.
Yeah, could be. Now, the concerns that I'd have is that it has somewhat bad concealment and is slow, right? For example, there is at tier 8, how was the Pan-American Court, Pan-American secondary ship?
The Massachusetts.
No, not the US one, the Pan-American one with like the high...
Atlantico.
Atlantico, yes. Like, Atlantico is also a slow secondary ship, but what makes it work a lot of the time is that you have such good concealment, so you can sort of position the way you want and sneak up on people.
It also does about, 4 knots more. It's like 25 knots, sort of Nagato speed, as opposed to this, which is very firmly at 21 knots.
Yeah, like being at 21 knots with band concealment, you should have a very hard time getting close to anyone, because everyone who sees you and is afraid of your secondaries can just turn in time. And I mean, they can also outrun you, right? Even if you manage to get in secondary range, probably almost everything is going to be faster than you and can run away. So it remains to be seen how much of that you can actually use. But, having a secondary ship at tier 7, a US one, not a bad idea, I think.
If the experience of, I mean, like the only other slow secondary focus ships we have at the moment are the Agincourt and the Oklahoma, actually, which is, I think, one everyone forgets about because it's not great. But yeah, you sort of have to get people to come to you to use the secondaries, and obviously those at tier 5 have, again, a much lower range. It's 9.5, by the way, secondary, the best range you get at tier 7. So,
I mean, I think has the advantage that at S tier there are more slower ships around.
True. Yes, at that tier, yeah. Oklahoma not so much. Oklahoma has 18 knots, 19 knots, something like that. Oklahoma's just pretty bad. But I mean, you do have, looking at the gun stats, I think it's slightly worse Sigma. It's 1.7 versus 1.8, but they are still 16-inch guns, and you still have a pretty decent range with them. And you can also have the opportunity of taking a spotter aircraft. So the firepower, in theory, ought to be okay-ish.
Yeah, so you're not necessarily entirely relying on the secondaries. You might just build this like any other battleship and just leave the secondaries as they are and have them in case something gets really clear.
It's all certainly, even just having 16-inch guns will give it an advantage over, I might even make it just by default more attractive than the California.
Also, keep in mind that like the US battleships, they don't have the dispersion module in like the
no, that's true. They only get the range extending module, don't they?
Yeah, and with that range, I mean, you could go for the range extending module, but like your cost isn't as high for going secondaries. Like if you go secondaries on a German, you're giving up on your main gun dispersion. But here you don't. You give up on more range. And if you can live with the 7.5 plus the spotter, then you can just take that module. And then, of course, there's an additional cost if you go for the captain build, but it's makes it a bit more tempting to go secondaries, I guess, if you don't have to give up main gun dispersion.
Yeah, although, I mean, it sort of depends how good the secondary dispersion is. You might not necessarily need to go all in, because with the, I think with the Massachusetts and the Ohio, you don't.
They have good base accuracy, that's true.
It's sort of improved base secondary accuracy. So let me check my...
obviously you'd still want the range.
Yeah. You might, yes, so that's a 3-point skill, but you might not necessarily have to take the 4-point skill, which it also gives a decrease in reload, but they're fast enough firing anyway that you might get away without that.
I mean, the advantage of the increased accuracy is mostly against destroyers.
Exactly.
So if you have... you want to farm destroyers if you are afraid they're getting too close, if you play more aggressively. Could still be worth it. I mean, if this ship is somewhat easily available, I'm more than willing to give it a try and check it out. If they put it in like the research bureau, then I won't.
Yeah. It does not, and as you say though, it does not have the surface concealment advantage that Atlantico does.
Yeah.
It's a relatively high base concealment of 15.2.
I mean, obviously,
the turning
still
circle
intense.
at least is good. Yeah, these are all testing numbers. As we always try and point out, these are all testing numbers.
So it could change, but overall, nothing offensive about the concept. Looks like it could be fun, and I approve.
Yeah, and it's also, as a tier 7, it's firmly in the range where you can take it into co-op battles as well, which might be an added
you
bonus for some people, because secondary battleships always are like they're a good preference to take into co-op. For some people, that is a strong consideration.
Then, yeah.
Yeah, I was also going to say it does. Just before we finish it does also have decent-ish AA for tier 7, mostly in the short range.
Yeah.
But it is very short range. It's 2 kilometers, and it doesn't have defensive. So I don't think this is going to be like it's not going to be notable as an AA ship.
Yeah. So most of the damage you're going to do after the payload has been dropped.
Essentially, yeah.
Basically.
Well, then we move on to another hybrid.
I mean, on the topic of planes, this destroyer can launch planes.
Yes. Now this, and I think Drac has pointed this out previously when we've been talking about hybrids. This actually existed. The US did indeed decide to try making essentially hybrid destroyers. So they sacrificed a turret and a torpedo launcher, and were like, well, what if we, use this as a... I guess the idea was to use it almost as the Japanese used their cruisers as scouts, rather than everyone else using their carriers to be the sort of scouting capability. So,
I mean, I think
obviously,
the important part to point out is this ship was equipped with a catapult, which was part for the Pacific. In October of the same year, however, the catapult was dismantled. So it briefly.
It was an experiment that it didn't really this was not a solution that they decided was going to really work. It was something they tried out. But yeah, it also points out that, like I said, it was for launching a Kingfisher, which I believe was a float plane, like a recon plane, basically. And it was basically just to extend the recon range.
Yeah.
However, World Warships, what instead they are going to do is give it Tiny Tim equipped attack aircraft because okay. And they've also fudged it a bit by the fact that you will launch one aircraft when you're launching your squadron, and the other planes in the squadron will just kind of magically already be up there in the air waiting for you.
Yeah,
total realism.
Because obviously this ship, even with a catapult, it wasn't equipped with a flight deck to launch strike craft, right? So the planes just magically appear in the sky. Also, it has like either engine boost or defensive fire damage, but no heal, no smoke, or something like that. And I think it's going to be more of a torpedo focus. It only has one launcher though, with decent range.
Yeah, 13.5, and I don't play my Fletcher enough to remember if that's what the Fletcher has. I think it. Like I remember the gearing is what. Is the gearing 13.5? Are those gearing torps?
No. A gearing has 16.5, and Fletcher I think has 10.5 or so. 10.
Okay. That's sort of in between. Oh, and my client's crashed. Excellent. I was trying to look that up in my Warships client, and it said no. 66 knots. Not a great reload time. 106 seconds. Considering it is your only launcher, so you might have to spec into.
I mean, gonna be flying with plane. Like the biggest thing about a ship like this is that I feel like planes don't complement the destroyer that well, because destroyers tend to be on the front lines, and when you don't wanna give away control of your ship. Like if you're in a battleship,
having to take yourself out of the action in order to use the planes.
Like in a battleship, you're usually at a parked at a somewhat safe location at range, and you fire guns that have a long reload anyway, then you take your planes, you go somewhere, you might do it while you transition or something, and the depending on where a ship is parked, there is a very small likelihood that you need immediate control. You might even be in concealment while you're not firing your guns, while you are operating your planes. While a destroyer, sure, you're also in concealment while you're operating your planes, but you're probably at a spot where you could easily get torpedoed or get spotted or something else. So positioning in a way that you are doing your destroyer job while still having the ability to use your planes is going to be tricky. Of course, there are situations where maybe you're contesting a cap, you're on one side of an island, and you use the planes to take the destroyer on the other side of the island, something like that.
Yeah, so, the fact that it doesn't have smoke as well, like that's the one scenario where you would be like, okay, you could lay down a smoke screen and maybe use the planes to get an idea of where somebody is outside of the smoke screen, like a kind of poor man's radar or hydro. But you can't do that unless it's somebody else's smoke.
Yeah, I mean, it could also be an interesting ship to division with others, I suppose.
Maybe that's what they have in mind. Like, you look at some, it's not often, it's things like the Tiger 59, you look at them and you think this was designed to be played in a division. It just doesn't do well on its own.
I think this is going to be a very tough ship to play, because making the best use out of the planes is going to be very hard. And just that the fact that you have planes can make it terrifying in the hands of a good player because of all the spotting that you do. And I mean, destroyers are a lot about spotting, right? And especially if you are like on low health, and you don't have that many torpedoes, but you have the range to hang back and top. You also think you had a reasonable 8.3. What does 8.3 get down to?
That's a good question. That's going to be 6 point something.
Yeah, it's probably like 6.7 or so. So that's actually pretty bad.
Yeah, that might drop if I was looking at anything like either it. Just bearing in mind again, initial stats. I would say that either this might get a smoke screen or it might get its range, its surface spotting dropped a bit, because that's pretty bad.
Yeah.
That's looking at the base concealment of the Fletcher. That's more than a kilometer worse than the base concealment of the Fletcher.
So basically, you don't have the most hit points. You don't have like a smoke as defense. If you don't have a heal, you have very bad concealment. You don't have that many torps. At least you have a decent range. So you are kind of forced into a role where you torp from the back and use your planes on occasion.
Yeah, it's weird. It's a weird one. Like it's going to struggle to do destroyer things with that concealment.
Yeah.
4 guns is not
planes.
Terrible firepower, but like even with that rate of fire, it's still going to get out DPM'd by things. And if you're purely relying on the torpedoes, you can't launch them that often. So yeah, that's a weird one. I have a feeling some of these stats will probably change, or at least that's my gut feeling.
I mean, my biggest concern is that this is going to ship very hard to play. So in testing, it's going to be underperforming because, a lot of the testers are going to be relatively casual players. And, if you have like you aren't going to do much under concealment, you don't really have that many hopes, and people won't know how to properly use the planes. So it will probably be performing very badly, and then it's going to get buffed, and then we're going to have a disaster on our hands. But, I mean, maybe everything will work out, and okay.
We'll see. It's not a completely uninteresting concept, but it's still a weird concept, and you can see why it didn't really work in real life.
Oh, definitely. Well, a much better concept in my book is the next one, the Jaeger.
Now, this is a very un-Tier 9 looking ship, as anyone that's watching will be able to see. If you're listening, maybe not so much, but you would look at this, and like if you didn't see the Tier 9, you would think, oh, this is going to be like a new Tier 3 premium, or maybe a Tier 4. No, it's Tier 9.
I mean, all we have to say, it's Austro-Hungarian. I mean, that gives you a bit of the time period.
Yes. This is also a planned ship rather than one that was ever actually built.
No, this, I mean, it's actually built, wasn't it?
No, I think this one was just a design. It does talk
was
about
it?
the
Okay.
Tatras, which I think we do have in game.
In total, at least 212 stars were planned. Okay. You should never appear in reality. Okay,
How it will be
just
implemented here in our game,
planned.
as they do.
So, not a real ship, but one that was at least planned, I suppose.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the interesting thing is gameplay-wise, it's doesn't. I mean, it has 3 150mm guns, but you know, it's not going to be winning many gunfights. I think this thing is all about the torpedoes and its stealth. So its stealth should come down to like 5.5 or something around this, maybe 5.4, 5.5.
Yes, the base surface detectability is 6.7. So we're talking we're talking on a par with the stealthiest mid and high tier Japanese destroyers.
So you are basically around a Yugumo level, and you do have 3 times 4 torpedoes with 13.5 kilometer range and 86 knots speed and a 17-second reload. Of course, those only do like 10 and 7k damage, so those are like the pan-European torpedoes, right? Fast reloads, good range, fast.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing, like you look at the range of the guns as well, it's only 9.5 kilometers main battery range, so it's very, they've taken this real life, you know, concept and very much tuned it for fitting the sort of Swedish model of destroyer that we have in the game. I doubt somehow the real life thing in 1917 would have had torpedoes with that kind of range.
Yeah, I mean, they took something that I found a piece of paper from and were like, let's make this into a tier 9 with whatever we desire, I suppose. Maybe they just said this game needs more Austro-Hungarian ships.
I think these are essentially the exact same torpedoes on the Östergötland.
Probably, but...
yeah, 13.5 kilometers on those as well, 86 knots. So, yes, basically Östergötland torpedoes on a much stealthier platform.
But you have more of them.
I say much stealthier. The Östergötland's only got 6, so it's all right.
Yeah, now 4 times 3 is very nice. Also, you have like the ultra small spread, and with like so 3 launches with 4, right? That's a lot of torps on a small area if you want to, or you can spread them out a bit more. So this is going to be a very fun torpedo boat in that sense. Now it doesn't have smoke. It does have a heel though. Its biggest shortcoming is basically there is no anti-air. And not having a smoke and not having anti-air means that, I mean, we know you can't, like even if you're Haaland, you can't really stop the carrier from dropping you, but the carrier can spot you indefinitely, right? The Haaland anti-air basically makes it so the carrier spots you only for a limited time, comes in, probably damages you a bit, and eventually you shoot down the plane so they go away. With this thing, the carrier can go AFK on top of you and you're not going to shoot down the plane. So,
I mean, we say that, it's got AA that is 3 times better than the Asashio. But that's still pretty awful at that tier.
Yeah. Yeah, it also doesn't have a lot of hit points. Keep in mind, with the captain skill, you get it a bit higher. Like, you get what? How much do you get out of the captain skill? 3,000 or something?
At that tier, I can't even remember how many it is per tier.
Me neither. So I'm assuming something like that. So
is it like 300, 350 per tier?
So yeah, you're gonna be maybe up to
350. Yeah, it's 350 per tier.
Maybe up to like, I don't know, 19,000. So it's not going to be the healthiest destroyer there has ever been. Also, was there a pan-European that had a I don't remember what do the special captains buff the pan-European one? I think there was one that buffed Adrenaline Rush. Was there one that buffed the hit point gain? Probably not.
I don't think so. The only one I can think of offhand that does is Ovechkin. He has an enhanced survivability expert. I'm looking at it now. No, Swirsky does not have. I'm probably horribly mispronouncing that, but yeah, he doesn't have enhanced hit points. He's got enhanced adrenaline rush for destroyers.
And there you go. At least if you're getting farmed, you are torpedoing fast.
Also, the Torp armament expert skill, where if you get 8,
that's going to work
every
really
8
well.
torpedo hits, you get minus 5% torp reload. And I don't know if there's a cap on how many times that can fire.
Don't think so.
He also has an AA gun expert. Activates once per battle after shooting down 20 hostile aircraft. That's probably not going to be relevant to this particular ship.
No. Well, yeah, you get the hit points up to like 19,000, and you do have a heal. So 3 charges of your heal, or I suppose if you have one more consumable. So, I mean, and you're very sneaky. Like, you don't want to be in gunfights with this in the first place. Your biggest issue is going to be something like plane spotting, because you can do absolutely nothing. You can neither disappear in smoke, nor can you shoot them down. So planes are going to be horrendous to deal with. Other than that, you can rely a lot on your concealment, because you're outspotting almost everything that you encounter.
It's also got a decent tone of speed, I'll give it that. And it does get access to the engine boost as well.
Yeah,
37 knots is decent.
Yeah, decent speed, engine boost, concealment. So basically, you can just avoid a lot of things. And with 13.5 kilometer torpedo range, you can even torpedo outside of radar range. Honestly, this is one that I'm looking forward to playing. I mean, it's Austro-Hungarian, but just like stat-wise, this is a ship that would interest me. So if it's not Research Bureau, I'm probably getting it. If it's Research Bureau, then I don't care. But if it's not, then I probably get. This is a ship that really interests me.
It does. I think if you like the Swedish destroyers, I think this is probably. It doesn't seem like it's radically different in play style. Just much better stealth and basically worse firepower.
I'd say it's different. That it's like the Swedish have reasonable guns, and they. Well, at the end, yeah, but basically they can.
That's probably the biggest difference is the AA.
they can get more into gunfights, but this is 4 times free. No, it's 3 launches of 4. It's 3 launches with 4 torpedoes each. It's a lot of torpedoes. That's more torpedoes than the Halland.
It's more torps. It's more torps than the both Scotland and the Halland, I think. Which
Halland has 10. And here you have 12.
10.
And having 3 launches, if you play Sommershimmer a lot, having it distributed in 3 launches can be very comfortable, because you can either concentrate them more or spread them out more, depending on what you want to do. It's only 10,700 damage per torp, but keep in mind that small spread, and if you have all launches at the same point, in close quarters, that's 12 torpedoes with that. It's going to leave a dent in everything.
My feeling is, it's going to be useful against everything, but especially with an arrow spread, it might be particularly useful against other destroyers if you can get them with the torps, where the lower damage amount doesn't matter quite as much because you're dealing with less hit points anyway. So yeah, it's sort of like a Benham had a love affair with an Östergötland, and this popped out, I guess, in terms of its
pretty much
AA, but it gained extra torpedoes out of it.
Pretty much. So this is one that I'm actually looking forward to. Now let's hope they don't make it Research Bureau. Because not even that, I think, can motivate me to go through that process. Yeah, I think that covers that dev block.
Yeah, there's nothing else there. So, some interesting ships coming up. I think probably the biggest question marks are over the Halford in terms of how it will come out versus the initial stats. But yeah, West Virginia could be very solid for ops, and Jaeger could be quite a lot of fun if you like the Swedes already.
True. Next, we have some changes to test ships. Not sure if there's anything too interesting. Combat instructions got changed. Like it's, those are still all in testing. Well, I've no idea. Technically, the Pan Americans are now in early access, but I haven't actually played one, so I can't really comment on how any of this performs, basically, or how much that makes a difference.
Yeah, it looks like they've done a few little. They've tweaked combat instructions, moved some things around different slots, some consumables, and turret traverse, which was apparently quite bad for the tier 6 and tier 7. 30 seconds turret traverse on a tier 6 light cruiser is kind of painful, so that's probably a good thing that got buffed. But yeah, nothing there super, like that's all test ship stuff, so we'll skip that.
Then we have a new dockyard, new map, and other upcoming features. There is surprisingly little information about a dockyard for a dev block that starts with a new dockyard. So it's going to be the Dyson, Tier 9 Japanese battleship. That's the final reward. We've
looked at this previously, so this is going to be the 8-gun design that is a sort of 1910s era design, I believe it was, rather than a later IJN design. But they'll have done the usual fictional modernization thing to bring it up to spec for Tier 9.
What they haven't said is, like, is this going to be a free ship? Like, usually in the dockyards, they have, like, a free lower tier ship halfway. There's no information on that. What we know is there are going to be 34 stages. 29 you can achieve for free. That, leaves you with 5 more.
You have to buy the starter package if you want to, like the minimum starter package if you want to actually.
Now, here is where the scam starts, because you get 3 stages from the premium battle pass, which doesn't get you actually to the end. So we don't know how they're doing the starter packs this time. Usually they have 2 starter packs on dockyards, right? One that gives you the exact amount of stages that you need to complete it with the free one, and then one that gives you a bit more leeway in case you think you can't fully complete the dockyard. But this time, we don't know what they're going to be. Will there be starter packages or not? But you can get 3 stages from the battle pass.
If I had to guess, because generally what they have done is if you have bought more stages than, like if you bought the maximum number of stages, or even just bought individual stages for doubloons, and you get to the end and you still have some of the missions left, like the extra stages you complete give you a bit of steel. So I wonder if that's supposed to be sort of a little incentive bonus for people to get the premium battle passes. If they get that, then they'll actually potentially get a bit of steel during this event as well.
I mean, it's true. If you just look at it like that, if you complete the dockyard, then the 3 stages will be converted to steel. But it's just like they could have made a number of stages that feel like they make a difference. Like you go from like the 29 then to what, like 32. We don't know what the 3 stages that you get from 29 on will have as their rewards. Each stage gives you something. But it feels a bit scummy that they put stages into the premium battle pass, but not enough to actually get you to the end. So just enough to make you spend more money, because then you realize, wait a moment, I got those 3 stages, I'm still not at the end. So then you spend another 3,000 doubloons to finish it, which is more than the premium battle pass costs.
Either way, they're doing it to entice people to spend a bit more money.
Yeah.
Essentially. So not so much generosity as either way trying to get people to buy some doubloons.
Yeah. Well, next they decorated the port and a new map, SHLs. So coming soon, apparently in 12.3.
Yeah, it looks pleasantly tropical. There's a nice... I don't know what cruise ship that is offhand, but somebody somewhere probably has done the detective work already and gone, oh yeah, that is the such and such, based on the configuration of the funnels and the... yeah, it'll be, oh yeah, that's that famous German cruise liner or Russian cruise liner or British cruise liner or something. Because, nerds on the internet are going to nerd.
Probably.
Of course, I say this as someone who's definitely completely not nerd.
I wonder if it will probably not move. I presume some of the smaller boats in this port will move around.
Maybe. It'd be nice if you could see a little tender going back and forth between the cruise ship and the shore, perhaps.
There are surprisingly many details on maps these days, or things that even after years I've only found out about. So, like, I forgot the map, but there was a map where there was, like, at the beach, an upturned ship that was converted into a house with, like, a chimney and stuff like that. And it's like you find things like, I mean, there is the tree with the eerie wisp going around that kind of on Two Brothers, and there are tons of things on those maps that are actually very nicely designed.
Yeah, I mean, my personal theory is that, like, the people that do the map design details, they don't always have new maps to work on, so maybe they just get to tinker on existing maps in their spare time and just add little stuff like that. I don't know.
Maybe, but I just like those people are doing a great job, right? Who are designing this. There is a lot of love and detail put into this. Now, what unfortunately we don't have here is an actual look of how, well, we see how the graphics look, but we don't know the layout of the map. And they basically say it's domination with 4 key areas, but it would be nice to see the map and where the domination areas are, because since this map is coming soon, you'd expect that to be.
I do wonder, I mean, it mentions it's going to be two big islands and then smaller islands, so it depends how they space it out, but potentially it could be something a bit Two Brothers-ish.
Maybe.
But with sort of lower islands and more spread out.
Would have been nice if they included a picture of that, yeah.
Yeah.
But, I'm always looking forward to new maps, so that's going to be nice. Maybe they've learned something from the past mistakes, and when they release a new map, it will actually be preferred in the rotation. I doubt it. But we shall see. Meanwhile, new collection.
Yeah, we're going to have a anniversary of the end of the war, which is that May? Can never remember. We don't always get stuff like that in World of Warships, but I think they much more often do events in certainly World of Tanks. You tend to get end of the war events.
I mean, speaking of events, they are introducing a new combat missions for portal competitions, sort of thing. Like there are portal competitions where you can click participate, right? And then there's like in this month or in this time period, the person with, I don't know, the most damage in a battle wins a prize or something like that. And you'll now be able to track that in-game with a mission counter. You can see, like, if you participated in an event, you can see in-game what your top result currently is. So that's nice.
Yeah, always nice to be able to track your progress and stuff like that.
Now, they say you won't see what other people have done, so you don't know how you stand actually with your result, but at least you know your own result, right? It's nice. then technical changes. They're working on a fix that ships are no longer stuck at islands and they'll slip when they hit on land. And they'll they want to change the islands so you can actually see where the islands are.
Yeah, there's still definitely instances where it's possible to get jammed on things. So that basically, I'm not sure we've covered the previous dev blog where they talked about this, but you'll sort of slide off essentially.
That made me think, right? Wargaming tends to use special game modes to test certain things that they are thinking about implementing in the main game. And right now, obviously, in a very exaggerated way, the ducks bounce off stuff. If you're playing the hot tub mode and you're in your duck and you run into one of the toys, you get comically catapulted backwards. If you run into another duck, you get catapulted backwards. I wonder if this is just an exaggerated way of testing the slip-free mechanic, because basically they are programming that when you run into something, you get pushed back. Right now, obviously, comically in this game mode, but if tuned down, they could be like running into an island and then the island just very slowly pushes you back a little bit. So I think that might just be the first testing on the not get stuck.
That's entirely possible. You're right. It's entirely possible that that's that's using those parameters. But toned up really high, so, made of rubber.
I mean, we'll see. Just a passing thought. Then they updated some sound files. Actually, I'm gonna play this, but I don't remember. Do spaceships have the anti-air sounds back? Because I didn't have anti-air sounds for 2 patches. I'm not sure if they are back yet.
I don't know. I hadn't noticed that, but I don't play the ones with those skins that often.
Probably should know, since I encountered I was harassed by planes yesterday in my space shimmer, but I forgot. Anyway, we are getting unique upgrades for Venezia and Holland.
And just as a general note, one of the later ones is also some unique upgrades being tested on other tier 10 ships. So they seem to, we had a pretty long hiatus where I think they did a little bit of tuning on some existing ones, but they didn't add any new ones despite more tier 10s being added. But yeah, they seem to suddenly be getting back into adding in unique upgrades for tier 10s that don't have them already. And as unique upgrades, are they now Research Bureau? Can't remember. That might be the impetus, is to give people to
I think so.
A reason to go back and get them.
Now, the one for the Holland seems to be one that basically buffs survivability, and it goes in the slot where you'd usually have either the torpedo or the gun reload, probably torpedo reload on the Holland. So instead, you can basically say, I give up on a bit of offense and I go more defensive instead. It makes your heal more efficient, gives you more heal, and gives you more max speed with the engine boost. That's an interesting concept. I suppose I like it. Not sure if I'd mount
to be honest, that one feels like a pretty good straight, just sort of I can see a lot of people being willing to give up a bit of torp reload, because the torps are still going to reload pretty decently, and it will absolutely add endurance in terms of tangling with other ships, which you're going to have to do anyway.
Yeah.
Plus getting +1 of all your consumables out of that. That to me seems like a pretty strong unique upgrade. Like that's one I would will probably take if I have the ability to actually get that upgrade. So yeah, that seems like a pretty good one, all told. And the other one's for the Venezia.
I mean, I don't have a Venezia, so I'm not sure if I can comment how useful that's going to be. It's instead of concealment, basically you can go more smoke, which is also sort of concealment.
This one's going to be, I think this one, like, the Halland seems like a fairly easy one to go, yeah, okay, I'll take that in slot 6. This one in slot 5, giving up concealment. I mean, the Venezia is not a super well concealed ship anyway, just because, it's a huge, long cruiser.
Yeah.
But there could potentially be some real benefits to that. What is it? Okay, best concealment 12.4. So without concealment module, I don't know what that would drop to, but like 13, maybe 14 kilometers, which is a bit on the long side for a tier 10 cruiser. But the fact that you're not only getting 2 more smoke gens, but which is fairly significant, going up to 5. The fact that the cooldown is dropping by over a minute.
Yeah.
That's just as if maybe even not more significant. So that one I would have to think long and hard about.
I find it interesting that they go down to 81 seconds and not 80.
Yeah, it's they plugged the formula into the spreadsheet and it came out with 81 seconds. So there we go.
So, I mean, that's 99 seconds less cooldown. That's a lot of time that you save on that reload, right? So you can smoke a lot more. And then if you go like there is, there is a flag that you deploy smoke for longer, I think. Was there a module for like
extra 15% deployment time? And if you were really wanting to maximize your smoke, you've also no, you can't take that because that's the 5th slot as well. The ship consumables modification plus 10% from that for all consumables, but that's in the 5th slot, so you can't have that as well.
But
so if you did have that, then you'd potentially actually be lowering the amount of time that you have the smoke generator running for.
So interesting. It probably has value, and it makes sense that it goes into the concealment slot because it offers an alternative way of conceal.
It's definitely this one definitely feels more like a side grade. I'll be honest, I would actually rather have this on my Napoli. I know it's never you're never going to get a unique upgrade on the Napoli, but if I had the choice of give up some concealment and have the extra smoke charges, and Napoli has less anyway, and also with the reduced cooldown, there actually would be times when you would maybe want to get in and put the secondaries to work more on the Napoli than Venezia. Anyway, maybe that's just me.
I was just thinking you just want to farm stuff from smoke in a second.
Anyway.
I mean, there are some more decorations for Golden Week.
Oh yeah, I had to recalibrate my brain where we were on the thing there. So,
camos.
Yes, and more camos. The Japanese lacquer ones are always nice. That Congo one looks especially pretty, I think.
I mean, like when I look at this, like the Camodazione Yamato, the same is already for certain Japanese ships. Have the exact same one. They just now expanded it to some others. It's very good looking.
To be honest, if they did like basically that as a style of camo for all Japanese battleships, I think they'd probably make bank because it's a really nice looking camo.
Yeah, they could certainly extend that to other ships. Just basically all Japanese battleships.
I'm just trying to remember which ones have it. Not Nagato. Hyuga does.
Wasn't there like the tier 7 Amagi sort of the Amagi Aihal that was a tier 7? What's that called?
Ashitaka has the Kobayashi camo. I don't think it has ever had the lacquer camo.
Then the DD has it at tier 10 DD.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, now 2 warships have it. And they are looking good.
Yeah, I mean, especially Congo being a tier 5, I can definitely, like, it's not going to be that expensive, hopefully. I can see myself buying that for the Congo.
Yeah, that was the name I was looking for. I mean, well, the problem with Congo is, I mean, I have up Congos, right? And while this is very good looking, it doesn't have, like, the neon lights that my up ships do, so... Sorry, Camo, but you're very good, just... You lack the neon lights.
It's actually, thinking about it as well, being on the Congo, there are not that many regular tech tree ships that have a camo. New York does. In fact, I think New York's got 2 of them for some reason. But I am struggling to think of any non-premium battleships.
Bismarck has like 5.
Yeah, some ships are very well endowed with camo. I think Nagato. Tier 8 cruiser. Otago. I think Otago's got a bunch of camos as well. Yeah, Otago's also got 5 perma camos. That I know of. So yeah, I would like to see more of the tier 5 tech tree ships get perma camos generally. But maybe that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, Wargaming has given up most in lower tiers, so I'm not sure if they'll do that. I mean, technically, once they have a camo that you can fit on multiple ships, it wouldn't stop them from fitting them on more ships, right? Once they have a pattern down. So
true, especially if they're similar ships.
It wouldn't really hurt them because, like, all of the consumable camos, they fit on all ships, right? So if they design something like that, then they sell it as a premium. They could put it on everything. They just like to use more controversial monetization things and not the nice, easy ones.
The one, like, and this is just a complete tangent, but the one other kind of Japanese style of camo that I would like to see, which we do have on a ship that I don't actually possess, but it was one of the premium Kamikaze sisters that had the Kanagawa wave style, like blue and white camo, and I always kicked myself for not getting it because I really liked that camo. But that on some other ships would be quite nice. I think was it like the Kamikaze P or something like that? It was like, we're going back at least 7-8 years with that.
Mm-hmm.
Kamikaze Pearl, yeah, it was something like that, yeah. But that, I think, that's a really, really well-known piece of Japanese art, and it's always kind of surprised me that they haven't used that on at least 1 or 2 more ships. I mean, you do have the kind of slight wave style on that the lacquer designs, which is kind of what made me think of it. But although black and gold is very nice, it would be even nicer to have the kind of more based on the real art as a thing. Anyway, that was a complete tangent, nothing to do with anything. So we have more containers.
Yeah, we do. But we also have more camos. And do you know what CLR stands for? Because there's going to be a North Carolina Rune CLR camo.
I do not know. CLR. Is this going to be...
I have nothing.
Yeah, I don't. It looks like it's. Like, my guess would be maybe some kind of anime I'm unaware of, or.
I mean, maybe it's a collaboration. I mean, it doesn't need to Although, I mean, it looks fun. Maybe it's a collaboration with something.
Yeah, the fact that these are basically clone premiums with essentially unique camos. They don't tend to do that unless it's a collaboration, like we had with the Warhammer Amagis, for instance.
They do look pretty. I mean, I like those camos. I like the blue even more than the red.
They sort of harken towards the slightly spacey looking ones, don't they? I suppose.
Yeah, or at least like relatively modern, I suppose.
Yeah.
Maybe not space, but at least futuristic. The problem is I hate the horn, so. Then when we get to Alte Grau, it gets really interesting. I'm not sure what style that is.
I don't know if it's going to be one specific style or if it's just kind of generalized out of various sort of native South American cultures.
Maybe.
But I don't know if it's specifically meant to be, this is Olmec or, something else. But it's that kind of style.
I mean,
they tended to go in for very colourful designs and big toothy statues.
Sally says Inca. I mean, maybe
Inca,
I don't know enough about them. I think it doesn't look bad. It wouldn't be like my first choice for a camo, but I look at it and I like it's artistic. Put it like that. I feel like it's
bold,
artistic looking. That's
very bold, and it's not like sometimes you get these camos that are like big blocks of color and they're a bit kind of like they make your eyes bleed. But
this actually looks tasteful, I think.
Yeah, I think it works, and especially with the gold edging as well. That looks all right. So that one's interesting. I do like to see these more geographically inspired camos, like the sort of Greek trireme one they did for the Velos was a very, very nice looking camo. Or the Korean turtle ship.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So when they put their mind to it, we can come up with some good stuff sometimes.
Once again, art department, like the visuals, the graphics, all of that, amazing. Most of the time they are really pretty amazing.
Yes.
Now the next one is, not really mine. It looks alright-ish, but I don't know. It's the weakest of the one here so far, I'd say.
Yeah, Volga Flotilla. Now that's going to be. I don't know. Did the Soviets have like a riverine flotilla that used that sort of camo? I mean, that would be my first guess without knowing anything about it. It discharges into the Caspian apparently, so it's not like it goes into the Black Sea.
The Alte Grau is what I'd say good tasteful art, and this Soyuz is more modern art.
Yeah.
It's
that smacks to me of it's based on like it must have been like Riverine patrol craft or something like that.
I don't know. I would have said it's based on like a place that's trying to be hip, also.
Maybe that too. I don't know.
But I don't know.
If it was small patrol craft, it feels a bit out of place. Maybe putting it then on a battleship as opposed to a destroyer. But yeah, what do I know? We're talking about destroyers. There is going to be a sort of fairly plain blue camo, but a very nice, clean-looking camo at the same time for the Tashkent 41.
Yeah, is this like what's like the above the like at the railing? It's like
it looks like some
flag?
kind of like awning or canvas that's just been put along the railing as, I guess, a sort of semi-windbreak or something. But yeah, it's very kind of clean, peacetime-looking camo, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, bit bland for my taste, but nothing wrong with it. Well, next up there are some flags, or like not flag, but one is a flag, one is I don't know how I call it, emblem, whatever.
Yeah, patches.
Patches.
Looking at those, actually, that does kind of.
Not sure what the middle one represents, but I was never an expert on heraldry, I suppose. It could also just be made up.
That to do with the rune, maybe? I don't know.
Maybe.
It looks it's definitely European sort of heraldry with
Yeah. But I can't place it. Well, then there are some flags and some more. Some containers have been updated with more stuff in it.
Even more containers. There's been like 3 lots of containers in this one article.
You can never have enough boxes. At least my cats tell me this.
Yeah, Allied Fleets containers. We've got the Golden Week containers, and now Italian Cruisers premium containers.
I mean, they say updated, so I mean they put more stuff into our containers.
Yeah, it's still 3 lots of containers being mentioned in one article.
True. I suppose that brings us to like the next one, which is more super ships. And if you ever wanted a super conqueror in the super patcher, now they're coming.
Yes. So, we're getting Devastation and Novosibirsk, respectively. And Devastation is basically, I guess, Conqueror with more hit points, more guns.
A fat Conqueror, right? If you feed the Conqueror enough food, then it turns eventually into Devastation, I guess.
Yeah, this is what happens if you feed your Conqueror after midnight.
Yeah. So 4 times 4, that's 16 guns.
16 of the same Conqueror guns, so the same fire chance.
Yes.
48% for anyone that somehow doesn't know the obscene fire chance those guns have.
Is it only 48 on the Conqueror? I wouldn't have been surprised if
it's higher on the Thunderer.
Ah, yes.
And of course, I'm pretty sure the 16-inch guns the Nelson has have a fire higher than 48% as well. Yeah, the Thunder is even more obscene, 63%.
I think the French, like the Republic, is also in the 60s.
Possibly. Yeah, you do see some of the high-tier Frenchies firing HE quite a lot, I suppose.
But yeah, like those are... I mean, the reload is 35 seconds. You can get that down by...
the one downgrade, really.
Yeah. What's Conqueror reload?
I think it's 30, or is it even 28? I actually have... I'm going to have to look this up on WoW's FT, aren't I? Because I've got it maximized to reload online.
I mean, after you put like modules for reload on, it's about probably 5 seconds slower reload than the Conqueror.
Yeah.
But it also means, like, after this reload, basically all damage cons have run the course, so you shoot them with your 16 shells, you set like 2-3 fires, and then once the damage con has run its course, your next salvo arrives and you set them on fire again, and you laugh while doing so, probably.
And it also has a slightly better range than Conqueror as well, so you can sit at range just as much as a Conqueror and laugh in Arsonist.
Large range fire spamming is clearly what this game needed even more. But it has bad armor piercing as the Conqueror, as I suppose they say it's low pen. But you probably don't care, because like a 7,000 high explosive damage in 16 shells is gonna hurt like a lot anyway. And with that fire chance, you probably don't bother switching a lot.
Oh, also, it's worth pointing out that the concealment is only slightly worse than the Conqueror also, so you can also make it basically almost as sneaky as the Conqueror if you want to.
15.3.
Although my Conqueror, I think I've actually got I've got the unique upgrade for that.
Like how far do you get that down to, like 12.5 or something?
Yeah, it's pretty decent on the Conqueror.
So, you can stay far away if you want. You're also pretty sneaky. You burn everything and you have the super heal. And you have almost 100k hit points, so... Yeah.
Also the super heal. Don't forget the super heal.
Yeah.
Well, Conqueror, but more so. Yay! Another reason to play tier 10.
Probably.
So the cruiser, on the other hand, I guess, does it say it's coming after the... Yeah, it does. It's coming after the Petro.
Yes.
So, there's still room for, if they wanted to, a second tier 10 super cruiser to come after the Nevsky.
I mean, there will be, definitely. But the Petro isn't popular, so obviously it's gonna get one first. And like the Petro, it's gonna have like better angles, so like reduced ricochet chance, got good armor pen. And it's going to be probably an AP monster that's very tanky. They say it has a high level of protection against high explosive shells. So I assume it will have armor at a threshold where most, even heavy cruiser guns, will just get shatters on you. So you can still burn, but there won't be much direct damage with high explosive. And considering it's Russian, I presume you will have, again, invisible armor plates, maybe an icebreaker or other, like low citadel. Will probably be pretty tanky, because it has a lot of hit points, so it's going to be... I mean, it's after the Petro. It's probably a lot tankier than the Petro. The Petro is already.
I'm trying to figure out if those guns have been on anything else, but I don't... 254 millimeters, I don't know if they have. No, everything else is sort of 220. Yeah, Petro and Moscow both 220. Nevsky obviously 180. So, quite chunky guns, good AP performance, and possibly very troll armor.
I'm not sure if like the additional caliber does anything in overmatch.
Probably not. But, it's going to be that extra little bit of ouchiness if they get a citadel on you.
Yeah.
It does note that it's not great with HE, and the HE fire chance and damage for the caliber of gun definitely looks on the low side, although the penetration's still pretty respectable.
Yeah, you're probably gonna be mainly playing this with IP, but then again, so you probably play a Petro, right?
Yeah. The main downsides of this seem to be poor detectability and the... as very typical for the line, very poor turning radius.
And I mean,
nearly
it has
1,100 meters.
It does have the same radar, so it's nice that they haven't tried to buff them.
Yeah.
It's going to be easily spotted. That's, as you said, its main downside, most likely. But considering how tanky it is, it's probably gonna do the same as Petro, sit somewhere nose in, and just farm things, and laugh, because it's probably gonna be tankier than most battleships. That's what I assume. I mean, we'll find out, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be fairly hefty firepower on a cruiser anyway. It's not quite as much so as the Alaska and the Puerto Rico with 11-inch guns, but someone in chat's pointed out they're 10-inch guns, and that's absolutely like that's still pretty good. That's still pretty hefty. I think that's actually a bit bigger than the Henri's 240 mils. So, that between the pretty respectable, it's got a decent 14-second reload on those as well. So that's a good reload for those caliber of guns. That could be potentially quite nasty to fight against. But to be honest, if I was loading into a battle, I'd probably rather see one of those than the Turbo Conqueror.
I mean, it depends what ship you're in, I guess.
True. If I'm in a squashy cruiser, I'm screwed either way, probably.
Possibly. Also, obviously it has, being Russian, it has no short-range anti-air, but pretty decent mid-range. I mean, you're still not going to be shooting down most planes, but
No.
you know.
But it does have the option of defensive instead of hydro, but I think most people take hydro these days, so it might, like if somebody does park up somewhere bowing, it might have that same vulnerability if it's sufficiently isolated to getting airdropped. Just wondering how that compares to the Petro, actually. That's actually, I think, a bit better than the Petro in terms of that mid-range AA.
Probably.
Slightly worse flak, though. They also note that Novosibirsk is the capital of the Siberian region. So, just in case you wanted to know where that was.
Okay.
So, we could say this is the Gulag ship, because Siberia is where all the Gulags were. So, you're sending your crew to the Gulag, they end up on this ship.
Well, I suppose this sort of concludes it for that. But in a somewhat related topic, or slightly at least, there are two unique upgrades, and one is for the Petro, so the ship before this super ship.
As I alluded to before.
Yes.
So these ones are being tested, so they're definitely not finalized. But Petro, which is obviously the Tier 10 cruiser we've just been mentioning, and then the Manfred von Richthofen, which is the Tier 10 carrier for the German CV line. So the Petro one, in place of the 6th slot, basically is just an all-round buff to your AP shells and dispersion generally, but you give up a consumable for that dispersion buff. And obviously in that 6th slot, you're also having to then think about either giving up range or reload to have that dispersion and penetration buff, or not penetration, damage buff.
I mean, I think you have enough range in the Petro, right?
That's a good trade, to be honest.
I mean, you'd also have to do some math how the reload is. Obviously, having better dispersion is good because, if you know how to aim, you should get more out of it. But having more damage per shot is generally nice. And since they are having a negative added to it by losing a consumable, I assume that they think this gives you more damage output than just a reload would.
Yeah, the bigger, you're losing, especially in Petra, you're losing both a radar and a repair party for that, which are both fairly significant hits.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you wanted to lose that heal.
Yeah, and especially if you're not running Superintendent, you would end up with only 2 of those each. So I guess the trade is it's they're calculating. I guess that you will, in theory, be doing enough damage to make up for potentially less survivability.
Possibly. I mean, they're also still being tested, so those values might be adjusting.
7.5% extra damage. That's going to be something like, at the moment, the AP is, where are we, 6,350. So that will.
Keep in mind there is also a captain skill for more IP damage, right?
That's true. Yeah, you have the heavy AP. Although I don't tend to use that on my cruisers because it comes at the heavy hit to your detectability. It's like minus or plus 15% to your surface detectability, which is fairly ugly. No, that's heavy HE. I'm looking at the wrong thing. Heavy AP shells is 5%. Okay, with no downsides.
Yeah, I mean, you might be taking it on a patch anyway, and I don't know how the stacking works. Like how the stacking is calculated. Do they add up those numbers or do they multiply them? Who knows?
7.5% though, that's going to be putting you. I don't think. No, you won't reach 7,000 per shell, but you won't be too far off 7,000 per shell. It'll be like 6,700, 6,800 damage per shell, something in that range. With my complete terrible in my head maths guesstimating. So yeah, I don't play Petro enough to know if that's worth the trade.
I don't even have a Petro, so
I'd rather keep the shorter reload.
Well, then Manfred von Richthofen also gets the upgrade, and I have absolutely no idea what that does compared to like the other upgrades you have right now. I have to say, like, the Richthofens have basically died out. I don't think I've seen one in the last 6 months. So I don't think anyone cares too much.
Yeah. You don't see them often. Basically, I did look at this beforehand. So in that 6th aircraft slot, you have three or carrier equipment slot, you have three possibilities. You've got Flight Control Mod 2, which is plus 5% to your squadron's speed. Air Groups Mod 2, which is 7.5% to all of your squadron's hit points. And then the auxiliary armaments, which is like secondary battery and AA. So I think they're going on the basis that most people are probably using the aircraft hit points increase. And you go from having 7.5% across all of your aircraft to specifically buffing your attack aircraft by a fair bit. So plus 20% and then another plus 5% to the actual AP rocket damage.
Yeah, but it wasn't like Richthofen more like into its, like, when the dive bombers more dangerous anyway?
I honestly don't know. It's not one I've got, not one I've. I must have played in the
like
that when we were CCs. We must have played it as a preview at some point, but I have no memory of it. And it's probably since then.
If I remember, Richthofen was, like, for a brief moment, was very popular because it had those nasty AP bombs that tended to wreck a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
But it has since been outshined by so many other stuff that nobody cares about it anymore. And like, they're buffing the AP rockets. The AP rockets have never been that big of a deal. I mean, I guess certain ships in the right circumstances,
yeah,
but
that's sort of situational useful. But yeah, this one feels a bit. It feels more like they've gone, well, the gimmick of this line is the AP rocket, so therefore let's make the unique upgrades buff the AP rockets rather than something that people might actually use all that often, considering it's apparently not a very popular ship. Or anecdotally not a very popular ship. I don't know if somebody somewhere wants to go and look up the publicly available stats, which
yeah,
sort of unofficial anyway. But Yeah, like situationally, those AP rockets can be very nasty on things.
Yeah, I mean, AP rockets were brutal on cruisers. Yes and no. I mean, the main problem with KRS is always that they are spotting, right? So you have limited ways to actually angle, because if you try to angle against incoming planes, you might be showing broadside to a lot of other ships. And like the automatic crossfire that carriers create is one of the biggest issues they have. But if that's not the case, for example, if you actually allowed to move, then you can probably maneuver your cruise in a way that the IP rockets aren't that problematic. Dive bombs, on the other hand, like the thing is you can't angle against dive bombs. Like when somebody comes at you with dive bombs, you can try to minimize the amount of your ship that's inside the ellipse.
I guess there's more, because there's more RNG involved, so they might miss or they might hit, regardless of maneuvering, kind of thing.
Yeah, but against dive bombs, there is no angling. Against dive bombs, the best you can hope is that you minimize the amount of like your ship that's inside the ellipse. And there are so many AP dive bombs these days that can utterly death strike you or wreck you so hard. And they are just so much easier to use in a sense than AP rockets, because there is absolutely nothing you can do. Like that there even if you are alone on the map and you can angle as you please, nothing you can do to other than pray to RNG that the dive bombs just drop in a pattern that will.
Yeah. I would think if they wanted to make this, I'm sort of talking from a position of ignorance on the state of the von Richthofen here, to be honest, but like if they wanted to make it attractive to buff the AP rocket planes in particular, I think they would have to add a couple more parameters in there. So maybe
I mean that they shoot faster?
Well, I think maybe a decrease to the aircraft preparation time, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Or you get one more plane per flight or something, or maybe you get some extra speed with them, or I don't know. I feel like they're going to have to throw an extra parameter or two in there.
I think the problem is
maybe, yeah.
I think the problem is the AP rocket route is possibly doomed simply because it's so much easier in a sense to use dive bombers. Because there is no defense against dive bombers, and somebody might be able to angle. Like you really need to get the nice side with the AP rockets, most likely. Unless you find something that I don't actually know what caliber those rockets were, right? If you find something that's so squishy that you can overmatch it, that might be a different case. But for the most part, like you need to know what you're doing with those a lot more than with dive bombers.
Mm-hmm.
Which
from if I think if it was something that buffed the dive bombers, that might be a bit much. But
yeah, exactly. That's the problem.
If they want to make it a true side grade and emphasize the rocket planes, the AP rockets, I think they need to do a bit more to it.
Yeah, I feel like they aren't going to make the ship unpopular, but then again, I mean, there are so many more offensive carriers right now. I really don't care what they do to Richthofen, I think.
Yeah, so that's it for the articles, but we also could mention that the
patch.
Well, there's been the patch. I was going to specifically mention the Illinois being now in the Research Bureau. And the Illinois is, for those that aren't aware, it's an Iowa hull with quad 8-inch turrets. So you basically are having very fast firing cruiser firepower on a battleship hull. It's a bit wacky.
I don't have it. I haven't seen a competent one yet, so I don't know.
I don't think I've got anything like enough Research Bureau points to. Let's have a look, see. If it's tier 9, it won't be quite as expensive as the tier 10. It's 51,000.
Yeah. I actually looked at the armory. Got the number again. But
in theory, if I did another line reset or two, I could probably get this. I might try and do that just so I can go, look at this ship. Isn't this ship silly?
I have no idea if there's any historical reason for that.
Somebody probably wrote it down on the back of a napkin or something.
Maybe somebody was like, but what if?
It does have significantly fewer hit points. It's only 68,000 which I'm guessing losing the big guns reduced the displacement a fair bit, so that's why they've shaved off quite that much health. But yeah, it's a bit silly. The concept of basically battleship but with cruiser guns. I mean, I suppose we've got enough cruisers but with battleship guns, so...
I mean, you like the Moine guns are pretty amazing, right? You can put a lot of damage out of those if you had them on a more durable hull.
I mean, 9-second reloads.
Yeah,
it's still a fairly long turret traverse, 30 seconds, but like the amount of DACA that you could put out with this thing, especially if you get close to somebody's broadside and you have the AP shells going, that could be a pretty scary prospect. So for anyone that likes playing their American cruisers but just feels that they just wish they had a bit more armor, the Illinois is now in game just for you.
Well, I mean, it lacks the radar though, so at least I think, right?
True.
It doesn't have radar. Well, I mean, aside from that, there is basically, the new... I mean, I think like the most interesting part about the new patch, personally, is the hot tub. Some people might love it, others might hate it, but there was definitely a lot of work put into this game mode by Wargaming. And I think it's just my kind of silly, right? I mean, you have a cat in sunglasses watching the battle going. What would you want?
I think I'm just happy to see it back. It's so long overdue.
I mean, it plays nothing like the original hot tub battles, but it's the same silliness in a sense.
Yeah.
Just turned up a bit more.
I mean I think that's the thing that absolutely sets it apart from the other events that we've had. That even the spaceship themed ones, it was still
somewhat serious.
It was basically entirely the same gameplay. It just had a different gloss of paint on it.
Not like there was the torpedo dodging one, right? The one where the ships
that's
were
probably
going.
The most different one that we've had. That's fair.
It was also pretty great. Like where you did like 150 knots in your destroyers, only had torps. But yeah, like. I mean, the way, like, for example, and as I said before, I think they are testing things, right? The way you bounce off stuff could be a test on how to like push ships away from islands. There are obviously mines being tested. Of course, this is like, in this game mode, there's so much close quarters fighting that mines have a lot different role than they would in an actual battle. And obviously, nobody takes this seriously. You can't take a look at, like, this map and I mean, even like the sound effects, right? They've gone out of their way to make duck and squeaky duck sound effects for this whole thing. It's hilarious. But the fact that somebody dropped their phone in this tub, that's basically just, just showing errors on the bottom on the tub and so on. I think there's a bird that walks outside when you can see like Captain Peter twice here in his chair. There is like, you can't see it on those screenshots, but there is like an outside a table where there's some food there and there's a bird walking there and,
You can tell they had fun with this one.
Yeah, you can tell that people they had a blast, right? They had a blast designing this, they just went crazy. Probably an executive just went and like, just do stuff. And they went like, yep. It feels like developers unleashed. You must not be named for trademark reasons. I'm not sure what you are quoting there. I'm not sure what trademark you're talking about.
I think he means the cat that's named after a US president.
Okay. I was thinking something probably along the lines of maybe like the food or whatever design they have. There's also, by the way, a TV there going on with a show with a crab on it. Garfield he means. Yeah, I don't know. I think Garfield was a little bit like the
Is that not
sunglasses.
supposed to be Big Orange Cat? Is that not Kitty Purrfirst? Isn't there the Kitty Purrfirst flag that has the orange cat?
Was a slightly different cat back then, but it goes into that direction.
Do I have that flag? Can I look? Kitty Purrfirst is indeed an orange cat, but not that fat.
Yeah. So and I can only recommend you guys check out that game mode. It's not for everyone probably because it is such a, I don't know, completely different gameplay, rather quirky. I guess you must like that crazy. But it is certainly very well made. And there are 3 starting ships and then 3 more that you can unlock. And the duck captains even have animated portraits.
I noticed that much. Yeah. I'm sold that I have to try. I mean, I was going to try this anyway, but yeah. I'm extra super sold. Anyway, it's nice to end on a happy, quacky note.
Definitely.
I'm still a little bit sad that they've never done a crossover with the Duck of World of Tanks, aka the AMX-40, aka the best tank in the entire game, at least according to me, and done a kind of like rubber duck version in the AMX-40 colors, or just like an inflatable looking AMX-40 in amongst all the other regular looking rubber ducks. But maybe someday.
Maybe someday. Yeah, I guess on that note, we can call it a night. Thanks everyone for watching, and we will be back when there's more news to talk about.
Indeed.
Bye.
Bye.